My name is Maximilian, and at 69 years old, I never imagined my only daughter Amanda would ban me from her wedding. We were inseparable when she was little. She used to call me her hero. But on her wedding day, I found my photo at the security gate with a sign saying, "Do not let him in." The pain cut deep, but I turned and left with my dignity intact. 4 hours later, my phone exploded with calls. Her perfect wedding had completely fallen apart. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below, and subscribe if you believe family should always come before status and money. I was born and raised in a modest neighborhood in Cleveland, Ohio. My father worked at the steel mill, and my mother was a school cafeteria worker. They taught me the value of hard work and integrity from an early age. I never had much growing up, but what we lacked in material possessions, we made up for with love and togetherness. After high school, I joined the Army and served for 6 years before returning home and starting my career as a construction worker, eventually working my way up to site supervisor. I met Laura at a friend's barbecue in the summer of '82. She had the most beautiful smile and a kindness that radiated from within. We dated for 2 years before getting married in a small ceremony in my parents' backyard. We were young, in love, and ready to build our lives together. Laura worked as a nurse at the local hospital, and between our 2 incomes, we managed to buy a modest 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood with good schools. When Laura told me she was pregnant, I cried tears of joy. I promised myself I would be the best father I could be. Amanda came into our world on a rainy April morning in 1985. The moment the nurse placed her in my arms, I felt a love so powerful it nearly knocked me off my feet. She was tiny, with wisps of dark hair and bright blue eyes that seemed to look right through me. I whispered promises in her ear that day, vowing to protect her, support her, and love her unconditionally for the rest of my life. As Amanda grew, our bond deepened. Every Sunday morning was our special time together. I would get up early and make pancakes shaped like animals, and Amanda would giggle with delight as she covered them with maple syrup. Those Sunday breakfasts became sacred to us, a tradition we maintained even through her rebellious teenage years. Each summer, I would take a week off work, and our family would go camping in the Allegheny National Forest. Amanda loved these trips, collecting rocks, learning to fish, and sitting around the campfire where I would tell her stories under the stars. She always insisted on staying up late to see the Milky Way stretch across the sky, her small hand gripping mine in wonder. When Amanda was 7, she announced she wanted to take dance lessons. Money was tight, but I picked up extra shifts on weekends to pay for them. I never missed a recital. I would sit in the audience, camera in hand, beaming with pride as she twirled on stage. After each performance, I would present her with a single pink rose, and her face would light up with pure joy. The teenage years brought typical father-daughter friction. Amanda began testing boundaries, staying out past curfew, and arguing about rules. I remember one particularly heated argument when she was 16 and wanted to attend an unchaperoned party. I put my foot down, and she stormed to her room, shouting that I was ruining her life. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door, apologizing and thanking me for caring enough to set limits. Even during those turbulent years, our foundation remained solid. When Amanda was accepted to Northwestern University on a partial scholarship, I felt a mixture of pride and anxiety. I was so proud of her achievements, but worried about how we would afford the remaining tuition. Laura and I had saved diligently for her education, but it still meant taking out a second mortgage on our house. When I told Amanda about our financial situation, she offered to choose a less expensive school, but I insisted she follow her dreams. The look of gratitude and love in her eyes made every sacrifice worthwhile. During her college years, we spoke on the phone every Sunday night. She would tell me about her classes, her friends, and campus life. I visited whenever I could, taking her out to dinner and listening attentively as she shared her experiences. She was thriving, double majoring in business and communications, making the dean's list consistently, and participating in multiple student organizations. Watching her grow into a confident, intelligent young woman filled me with immeasurable pride. After graduation, Amanda accepted a job with a marketing firm in Chicago. It was the first time she would be truly independent, living 400 miles away from home. The distance was difficult, but we maintained our connection through regular phone calls and visits. She would come home for major holidays, and I would drive to Chicago a few times a year to see her new apartment and experience her life in the big city. Gradually, I noticed our communication becoming less frequent. Amanda was building her career, making new friends, and establishing her adult life. Our weekly calls became bi-weekly, then monthly. When we did speak, she seemed distracted, often cutting our conversations short due to work commitments or social engagements. I told myself this was natural, a normal part of her growing up and establishing independence. Still, I missed the closeness we once shared. Despite the growing distance, we maintained our holiday traditions. Each Thanksgiving and Christmas, Amanda would return home, and for a few days it felt like old times. We would make pancakes on Sunday mornings, watch our favorite old movies, and talk until late into the night. These precious moments reassured me that although our relationship was evolving, our bond remained unbroken. 3 years after Amanda moved to Chicago, I received a call that would ultimately change everything. It was a Wednesday evening, and I had just returned home from work when the phone rang. Amanda sounded more excited than I had heard her in years. "Dad, I have amazing news," she gushed. "I am engaged." My heart swelled with happiness for my daughter. After congratulating her profusely, I asked about the man who had captured her heart. "His name is Jackson Harrison," she said. "He works in investment banking. We met at a charity gala 6 months ago. Dad, he is perfect. Smart, successful, handsome. I cannot wait for you to meet him." I was genuinely excited for Amanda and eager to meet the man she had chosen. We arranged for them to visit the following month. I spent weeks preparing for their arrival, fixing up the guest room, planning special meals, and even practicing what I would say when I first met him. I wanted everything to be perfect. When the day finally arrived, I stood on the porch watching as a sleek black Mercedes pulled into our driveway. Amanda stepped out, looking more polished and sophisticated than I remembered, followed by a tall, well-dressed man with perfectly styled hair and an expensive watch glinting on his wrist. "Dad!" Amanda exclaimed, rushing forward to hug me. "This is Jackson." Jackson extended a manicured hand. "Mr. Brooks," he said with a practiced smile that did not quite reach his eyes. "Amanda has told me so much about you." That first dinner was revealing in ways I had not anticipated. As we sat around our dining table, Jackson spoke at length about his family's estate in Connecticut, their vacation home in the Hamptons, and his Harvard education. With each story, I noticed Amanda watching him adoringly, occasionally touching his arm and laughing at all his jokes, even the ones that were not particularly funny. When I mentioned my work in construction, Jackson nodded politely but quickly changed the subject. When I tried to share stories about Amanda's childhood, he interrupted with tales of his recent business success or the celebrities he had met through his family connections. Throughout the evening, I felt increasingly out of place in the presence of my own daughter. After dinner, as Amanda helped Laura clear the dishes, Jackson examined our living room with barely concealed judgment. He picked up a ceramic figurine Amanda had made for me in 5th grade and raised an eyebrow. "Quite charming," he said, placing it back down carelessly. "Amanda mentioned you enjoy fishing? Such a quaint hobby." His condescending tone made my jaw clench, but I reminded myself that this man was important to my daughter. For her sake, I would make an effort to see his better qualities. Over the next few visits, I began noticing subtle but concerning patterns. Jackson would often answer questions directed at Amanda, as if she could not speak for herself. He would check his expensive watch pointedly when she engaged in lengthy conversations with us, signaling it was time to leave. He made frequent comments about upgrading various aspects of her life, from her wardrobe to her friends. Most troubling was the change in Amanda herself. My once confident, outspoken daughter became quieter, more deferential in Jackson's presence. She would glance at him before expressing an opinion, seemingly seeking his approval. Her clothing style changed dramatically, becoming more formal and expensive-looking but somehow less like the Amanda I knew. Even her manner of speaking shifted, adopting some of Jackson's phrases and his slight East Coast accent. During a rare moment alone with Amanda while Jackson took a business call outside, I gently voiced my observations. "Sweetie, are you happy? You seem different around Jackson." Her defenses immediately went up. Different how? More sophisticated? More successful? Is that what bothers you, Dad? That is not what I meant, I said carefully. You just do not seem entirely yourself. You used to speak your mind more freely. She sighed impatiently. I am evolving, Dad. Jackson comes from an elite social circle. There are certain expectations, certain ways of presenting oneself. You would not understand. That comment stung. But before I could respond, Jackson returned, and Amanda's demeanor instantly shifted back to the polished, agreeable version of herself that seemed to please him. Things became more strained when we met Jackson's parents, Theodore and Vivian Harrison, during a dinner at an exclusive restaurant in Chicago. From the moment we were introduced, their disdain was palpable. They barely acknowledged Laura and me, directing most of their conversation to Amanda, quizzing her about her family background, as if she were applying for a position rather than marrying their son. "And what did you say your father does again?" Vivian asked, though Amanda had already mentioned my profession twice. "He manages construction projects," Amanda replied, using a more impressive-sounding description of my job than I would have chosen. Theodore made a non-committal noise. "Interesting. And your family has been in Ohio for generations? Is that right? No connections to New York or Boston society?" The entire evening continued in this vein, with subtle and not-so-subtle reminders of the social gap between our families. I noticed Jackson smirking during some of these exchanges, seemingly proud of his parents' elitist behavior. On the drive back to our hotel, I tried once more to talk to Amanda. "Honey, Jackson's parents seem very concerned about social status. Does that matter to you now?" "They are just protective of Jackson," she replied defensively. "The Harrisons have maintained certain social standards for generations. They will warm up to you eventually." "And if they do not?" I asked quietly. Amanda turned to look out the window. "Then that is their loss," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Over the following months, every attempt I made to connect one-on-one with Amanda was somehow thwarted by Jackson. He would unexpectedly join our planned lunch dates, monitor their length with pointed glances at his watch, or call Amanda repeatedly if she was spending time with me alone. The tension came to a head during a Thanksgiving dinner at our home. Jackson had been making increasingly critical comments about our house, our neighborhood, and even Laura's cooking throughout the day. When he made a disparaging remark about the simple people in our community, I finally spoke up. "These simple people, as you call them, are hard-working Americans who care for their families and contribute to their community," I said firmly. "There is honor in that, regardless of income or social standing." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Jackson's face hardened, and Amanda looked mortified. "Dad, Jackson did not mean anything by it," she said quickly. "I think your father misunderstood," Jackson added smoothly. "I merely meant that the lifestyle here is less complex than what Amanda has grown accustomed to in Chicago." The subject was changed, but the damage was done. Later that evening, Amanda cornered me in the kitchen. "How could you embarrass me like that?" she demanded. Jackson was just making conversation. He was being condescending and disrespectful, I replied. "Amanda, I am worried about how he is changing you. You used to value character over status. Now it seems like you are trying to become someone else entirely. Maybe I am growing up, and you cannot handle it," she shot back. "Or maybe you are just jealous that Jackson can give me opportunities and a lifestyle you never could." Her words cut deep. We had never spoken to each other this way before. As she stormed out of the kitchen, I felt a growing chasm between us, one I was not sure how to bridge. After the tense Thanksgiving, Amanda called with news that Jackson had proposed to have their wedding the following summer at his family's estate in Connecticut. Despite the growing strain between us, I felt a flutter of excitement. My only daughter was getting married, and I wanted to be part of this important chapter in her life. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart," I said sincerely. "Your mother and I are so happy for you both." "Thanks, Dad," Amanda replied, sounding more like her old self for a moment. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about the wedding budget." I was surprised. Given what I knew about the Harrisons' wealth, I had assumed they would cover most expenses. "Of course, honey. Your mother and I have set aside some money for your wedding day. It is not a fortune, but we want to contribute." There was a slight pause before Amanda continued. "Jackson and I are planning something spectacular. The Harrisons expect a certain level of sophistication. We are thinking about having 300 guests, a 10-piece orchestra, and a weekend of events." My heart sank as she outlined their extravagant plans. The amount she was asking for was far beyond what Laura and I could comfortably afford. It would mean depleting a significant portion of our retirement savings. "Amanda, that is a lot of money," I said carefully. "Could we maybe discuss a more reasonable amount? Or perhaps focus on covering one specific aspect of the wedding?" "Dad, this is my wedding day," she said, her voice taking on that unfamiliar, entitled tone that had begun to appear in our conversations. "I thought you would want it to be perfect. The Harrisons are contributing substantially, but there are still gaps in the budget." I did not have the heart to say no. The next day, I went to the bank and withdrew a significant sum from our retirement account. When I told Laura what I had done, she was concerned but supportive. "It is her wedding," she said softly. "We want her to have beautiful memories." I mailed a check to Amanda with a loving note expressing our joy about her upcoming marriage. I expected a phone call of thanks, but instead received a brief text. "Got the check. Thanks. Very busy with planning. We'll call soon." That call never came. Instead, over the next few months, I discovered that despite our financial contribution, we were being systematically excluded from the wedding planning process. Important decisions were made without our input or even our knowledge. I learned about the final venue selection, not from Amanda, but from Laura's cousin, who had received a save-the-date card before we did. The wedding date had been moved up by 2 months, apparently to accommodate the schedule of some important business associates of Theodore Harrison. When I called Amanda to ask about these developments, she sounded distracted and slightly annoyed. "Dad, there are so many moving parts to coordinate. The Harrisons have connections with the best vendors, and it just makes sense for them to handle most of the arrangements. But we are your parents," I reminded her gently. "We would like to be involved in some way." "You can be involved by showing up and not making a fuss," she replied. "This wedding is important for Jackson's family connections and my future career prospects. Everything needs to be perfect." Her words stung, but I tried to understand. Perhaps the pressure from Jackson's family was overwhelming her. I decided to make one more attempt to reconnect with my daughter. I drove to Chicago unannounced, bringing along photo albums from her childhood and a special bottle of wine we had been saving for her wedding day. Amanda was clearly flustered when she opened the door to her apartment. "Dad, you should have called first. The place is a mess, and I have a million things to do for the wedding." "I thought I could help," I said, holding up the photo albums. "And maybe we could reminisce a little, just the two of us." She glanced nervously at her phone. "Jackson is coming over in an hour to go over the seating arrangements with me." "Perfect," I said, trying to stay positive. "I would love to help with that. After all, I know our side of the family." We spent an awkward 45 minutes looking through photos, with Amanda repeatedly checking her watch and responding to texts. When we reached a photo of me walking her down the elementary school father-daughter dance, I took a deep breath. "Amanda, I know things have been strained between us lately, but walking you down the aisle is so important to me. It is a moment I have imagined since you were born." A look of discomfort crossed her face. "About that," she began, just as a key turned in the lock and Jackson strode in. His surprise at seeing me quickly turned to annoyance. "Maximilian, we were not expecting you today." "I wanted to surprise Amanda," I explained, standing to shake his hand. Jackson ignored the gesture, turning to Amanda instead. "We need to finalize these seating arrangements tonight. The printer needs them by tomorrow." I tried to join the conversation. "I would be happy to help with the family seating on our side." Jackson gave me a dismissive look. "We have it under control. Actually, Amanda and I were just discussing the procession arrangements yesterday." Amanda would not meet my eyes as Jackson continued. "We feel that having Theodore walk Amanda down the aisle would create a more cohesive aesthetic. He will be wearing a matching tuxedo from the same tailor as the groomsmen, and they have already scheduled the fittings." I felt as though all the air had been sucked from the room, but "I am Amanda's father." "Dad," Amanda finally spoke, still not looking at me directly. "Jackson thinks, and I agree, that since his family is hosting and paying for most of the wedding, it makes sense for them to be more prominently featured in the ceremony." "Paying for most of the wedding?" I echoed, thinking of my depleted retirement account. "Well, proportionally speaking," Jackson said with a condescending smile. "What they are contributing versus what you provided." I looked at Amanda, waiting for her to defend me, to acknowledge our sacrifice, to insist that her father should walk her down the aisle as is tradition. Instead, she said, "Maybe Gary could walk me halfway, and Theodore could take over for the second half?" Gary was Laura's second husband. They had married after our divorce when Amanda was in college. While we had a cordial relationship, he had never been a father figure to Amanda. "You want your stepfather to replace me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It is not replacing," Amanda insisted. "It is just finding a compromise that works for everyone." "Everyone except me," I said quietly, gathering the photo albums and standing up. "I should go." "That is probably best," Jackson agreed readily. "Amanda is quite busy with wedding preparations." As I headed for the door, I turned back one last time. "Amanda, please think about what is happening here. This is not just about a wedding. This is about our relationship, our family." For a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the old Amanda in her eyes, a moment of recognition and regret. But then, Jackson placed his hand on her shoulder, and her expression hardened. "I will call you later, Dad," she said. But we both knew she would not. I drove the 4-hour trip home in silence, my heart breaking with each mile. When I arrived, Laura took one look at my face and understood. "They do not want me to walk her down the aisle," I told her, my voice cracking. Jackson suggested her stepfather instead. Laura held me as I cried for the first time in years, mourning not just the lost tradition but the daughter who seemed to be slipping away from me entirely. 2 weeks after my disastrous visit to Chicago, an elegant envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was an embossed invitation to Amanda and Jackson's wedding. I scanned it carefully, looking for any mention of my role in the ceremony. There was none. I was simply listed as a guest, no different from distant relatives or Jackson's business associates. Laura found me sitting at the kitchen table, still holding the invitation. "What does it say?" she asked gently. "Nothing," I replied. "It says nothing about me at all." I tried calling Amanda that evening, hoping to have a calm, reasonable conversation about how hurt I felt. The call went to voicemail. I left a message asking her to call me back when she had a moment. Days passed with no response. When she finally returned my call a week later, she sounded harried and impatient. "Dad, I am in the middle of cake tastings right now. Can this wait?" "I received the wedding invitation," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Amanda, there is no mention of my role in the ceremony. Have you and Jackson made a final decision about who will walk you down the aisle?" She sighed heavily. "We decided to go with Jackson's suggestion. Theodore will walk me down the aisle. It just makes more sense with how everything is being arranged." "And what about the father-daughter dance?" I asked, clinging to the hope that I would have at least that traditional moment with my daughter. Another pause. "We are replacing that with a special dance choreographed for Jackson and me. His parents thought it would be more elegant." Each word felt like a physical blow. "I see," I managed to say. "Is there any part of this wedding where I am welcome to participate as your father?" "Dad, please do not make this difficult," Amanda snapped. "This wedding is already stressful enough without you adding guilt trips." "It is not a guilt trip to want to be part of my only daughter's wedding," I replied, hurt turning to anger. "I have supported you your entire life. I paid for your dance lessons, your college education, and now a significant portion of this wedding that I am apparently not good enough to participate in." "I have to go," Amanda said abruptly. "The baker is waiting." The call ended, and with it, my last hope that my daughter might come to her senses before the wedding. In the weeks that followed, my calls to Amanda went unanswered or cut short after a minute or two of tense conversation. I sent texts that received one-word replies. If they were acknowledged at all, I began to feel like a nuisance rather than a father. Then came a disturbing phone call from my brother Robert, who had run into an old family friend at a business conference. "Max, I do not know how to tell you this," Robert said hesitantly. "But Thomas Jenkins mentioned that Amanda and the Harrisons have been saying some concerning things about you." My stomach tightened. "What kinds of things?" "They are telling people you were neglectful during Amanda's childhood, that you were always working and never present for important moments. They are implying that Theodore was more of a father figure to her in the few years she has known him than you ever were." I was stunned into silence. The accusations were not just hurtful, they were utterly false. I had been there for every milestone in Amanda's life, often working multiple jobs to provide for her, never missing a recital or school event if I could help it. "There is more," Robert continued reluctantly. "Jackson apparently told Thomas that you refused to contribute financially to the wedding, forcing his parents to cover all expenses." White-hot anger coursed through me. The check I had written represented years of careful saving, a significant portion of the retirement fund Laura and I had built over decades of hard work. That evening, I drove to Chicago without calling first. I needed to confront this situation head-on. When I arrived at Amanda's apartment building, the doorman informed me that she was out to dinner with Jackson and his parents. He gave me the name of the restaurant when I explained I was her father, and it was urgent family business. The restaurant was one of those exclusive establishments with no visible signage, just a discreet door and a host who looked at my construction worker hands in casual clothes with barely concealed disdain. I spotted them at a corner table, the four of them laughing over wine that probably cost more than a day's wages for me. Jackson saw me first, his smile fading into a scowl. Amanda turned, her eyes widening in shock. "Dad? What are you doing here?" Theodore and Vivian exchanged knowing glances, as if my unexpected appearance confirmed everything they believed about me. "I need to speak with you," I said to Amanda, trying to keep my voice calm. Privately. "We are in the middle of dinner," Jackson interjected. "Whatever it is can wait." "No, it cannot," I insisted, looking directly at my daughter. "Amanda, people are being told lies about me, about our relationship. Your future in-laws are spreading falsehoods about my role in your life and my contribution to your wedding." Amanda's face flushed. "Dad, you are making a scene. This is embarrassing." "What is embarrassing is discovering that the daughter I raised is allowing people to rewrite our history," I replied, my voice breaking slightly. "What is embarrassing is having my financial sacrifice dismissed as nothing while these people pretend they are your only support." Jackson stood up, positioning himself between Amanda and me. "I think you should leave, Maximilian. You have had too much to drink." "I have not had a drop of alcohol," I said evenly. "I just want the truth acknowledged." Theodore Harrison cleared his throat. "The truth, as I understand it, is that you were an adequate provider but largely absent emotionally. Amanda has shared quite a lot about her childhood with us." I looked at Amanda in disbelief. "Is that what you told them?" Her silence was answer enough. Jackson placed his hand on my shoulder, attempting to guide me away from the table. "This is not the time or place. Amanda does not need this stress before the wedding." I shrugged off his hand. "Do not touch me. I want to hear from my daughter why she is allowing these lies to circulate. They are not all lies, Jackson said, lowering his voice. Amanda has been quite forthcoming about how disappointed she has always been in you. Something in his smug expression made me realize he was enjoying this, that he had been orchestrating the wedge between Amanda and me all along. Is that true? I asked her directly. Have you been disappointed in me your whole life? She would not meet my eyes. You would not understand the pressure I am under, Dad. Jackson's family has connections that can make or break my career. They expect certain things, a certain background. So you invented a new one? I asked incredulously. One where your blue-collar father was a disappointment instead of someone who sacrificed everything for you? You need to leave, Jackson insisted more forcefully. You are upsetting Amanda. I need to speak to my daughter alone, I countered. Anything you have to say to her, you can say in front of me, Jackson replied. That was when I knew with certainty that I would never have a normal relationship with my daughter as long as Jackson was in her life. He had positioned himself as a gatekeeper, filtering all communication, reshaping Amanda's perceptions of her past and her family. Fine, I said, looking directly at Jackson. I want to know why you feel the need to isolate Amanda from her family. I want to know why you have convinced her to rewrite her history. And I want to know why you told people I refused to contribute to the wedding when I emptied my retirement account to give you what you asked for. Jackson's mask of civility slipped for a moment, revealing the contempt beneath. Let me be perfectly clear, he said quietly. You were never good enough for the life Amanda deserves. Your background, your occupation, your modest means, they are all liabilities to her future. The Harrisons have a legacy to maintain. And frankly, your presence is an embarrassment. I stared at him, shocked by the naked elitism in his words. Amanda, I said, turning to my daughter, is this what you believe too? She finally looked at me, conflict evident in her eyes. For a moment, I thought I saw a glimpse of recognition, of the daughter I had raised. Then Jackson squeezed her hand, and her expression hardened. Dad, you need to understand that my life is changing, she said stiffly. If you cannot support my choices and get along with Jackson's family, then maybe it would be better if you kept your distance. The words hit me like physical blows. I see, I said quietly. So that is your choice. Status over family. Appearances over truth. It is not like that, she protested weakly. It is exactly like that, I replied. And I feel sorry for you, Amanda. Because one day you will realize what you have thrown away, and it will be too late. I walked out of the restaurant with as much dignity as I could muster, feeling the stares of the other diners burning into my back. In my car, I sat for a long time, too numb to drive, trying to process what had just happened. The next day, I wrote Amanda a long, heartfelt letter. I poured out my love for her, my concerns about Jackson's controlling behavior, my hurt at being excluded from her wedding, and my hope that she would reconsider before making what I feared was a terrible mistake. I sent it by certified mail, so I would know when she received it. A week later, the unopened letter was returned to me. Attached was a note on Harrison family stationery, written in Jackson's handwriting. Amanda has requested no further communication until after the wedding. Please respect her wishes. I knew then that it was not Amanda's wish at all, but Jackson's manipulation. Yet there seemed to be nothing I could do. My daughter was slipping away, and every attempt to reach her pushed her further into Jackson's control. 2 days before the wedding, Amanda called. I answered immediately, hope flaring despite everything. Amanda, I said, I am so glad you called. I am just checking if you are still planning to attend the wedding, she said, her voice distant and formal. Of course I am, I replied. You are my daughter. I would never miss your wedding, no matter what has happened between us. There was a long pause before she continued. I think it would be best if you kept a low profile. Sit in the back during the ceremony. Avoid drawing attention to yourself at the reception. The request was like a knife to my heart. You want me to pretend I am not your father? To hide in the shadows on one of the most important days of your life? I just want everything to go smoothly, she said. sounding tired. No confrontations, no scenes. Have I ever caused a scene in my life? I asked, hurt beyond measure. Have I ever been anything but supportive of you? Just promise me you will be. Inconspicuous, she insisted, ignoring my questions. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. If that is what you want, Amanda, thank you, she said, sounding relieved. I will see you at the wedding. As the call ended, I made a decision. Despite everything, I would attend my daughter's wedding. I would be there, hoping against hope that seeing me might break through whatever spell Jackson and his family had cast over her. The morning of Amanda's wedding dawned clear and bright. I stood before the mirror, adjusting the tie on the new suit I had purchased especially for the occasion. It had cost more than I would usually spend on clothing, but I wanted to look my best for my daughter's special day, even if I had been relegated to the role of insignificant guest. Beside me, Laura fussed with her own outfit, a simple but elegant dress in a soft blue shade. Though we had been divorced for years, she had kindly offered to accompany me for moral support. "You look very handsome, Max," she said, straightening my collar. "Are you ready for this?" "As ready as I will ever be," I replied, picking up the small gift box from the dresser. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet that had belonged to my mother. It had been her most precious possession, and she had always intended for it to be given to Amanda on her wedding day. Along with it, I had written a card expressing my love and hopes for her happiness, despite our recent estrangement. The drive to the Harrison estate in Connecticut took almost 3 hours. As we approached the sprawling property, my stomach tightened with anxiety. The grounds were immaculate, with perfectly manicured lawns, elaborate flower arrangements, and a team of valets managing the luxury vehicles that arrived in a steady stream. "Quite a production," Laura murmured, as we joined the line of cars. When we finally reached the entrance, a young man in a crisp uniform approached our modest sedan. "Names, please?" he asked, tablet in hand. "Maximilian Brooks," I replied. "Father of the bride." He scrolled through his list, frowning slightly. "One moment, sir." He stepped away to confer with another staff member, their heads bent together in hushed conversation. After a few minutes, he returned with an older man who introduced himself as the head of security. "Mr. Brooks, may I see some identification, please?" Confused, I produced my driver's license. The security head examined it, then glanced at his tablet again. "I apologize, sir, but I need to speak with you privately." Laura squeezed my hand as I stepped out of the car. The security head led me a short distance away, his expression uncomfortable. "Mr. Brooks, I regret to inform you that we have instructions regarding your attendance today." "What kind of instructions?" I asked, though a sick feeling in my stomach told me I already knew. He turned his tablet toward me. On the screen was my driver's license photo, alongside a typed note, "Do not let him in." I stared at the screen in disbelief. There must be some mistake. I am Amanda's father. "I understand, sir, and I truly apologize. This directive comes directly from Mr. Harrison Sr. and the groom." They were quite explicit. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. My own daughter had banned me from her wedding. Despite her call asking if I would attend, despite her request that I keep a low profile, someone had made the decision that even my presence as a silent observer was too much to tolerate. Was my ex-wife also removed from the guest list? I managed to ask. The security head checked his tablet again. "No, sir. Mrs. Laura Brooks is still approved for entry." So it was just me. Singled out, erased. I stood there for a long moment, trying to process this final, devastating rejection. Part of me wanted to demand entrance, to create the very scene Amanda had feared. Another part wanted to collapse under the weight of this betrayal. Instead, I nodded slowly. "I understand." "Sir, for what it is worth, I think this is wrong," the security head said quietly. "If it were my daughter—" "Thank you," I interrupted gently, not wanting to hear his sympathy. "Would you please make sure she gets this?" I handed him the small gift box and card. "It is a family heirloom that was meant for her today." He accepted the package with a solemn nod. I will see that she receives it personally. I walked back to the car where Laura waited, concern etched across her face. Max, what happened? I have been uninvited, I said simply, my voice hollow. What? That is impossible, Laura exclaimed. You are her father. Not today, apparently. I opened the passenger door. You should go in. She will want someone from our family there. Laura shook her head firmly. No. If you are not welcome, then neither am I. We will leave together. As we drove away from the estate, I glanced in the rearview mirror at the elaborate wedding venue fading into the distance. The pain in my chest was almost unbearable, but I forced myself to drive steadily, focusing on the road ahead rather than the dreams crumbling behind me. We stopped at a small diner about 20 miles from the Harrison estate. I could not face the 3-hour drive home just yet, not in my current emotional state. We sat in silence, coffee cooling before us, neither of us knowing what to say. I should have seen this coming, I finally said. Every interaction with Jackson, every conversation with Amanda over the past year was leading to this moment. I just did not want to believe my own daughter could shut me out completely. Laura reached across the table to squeeze my hand. This is not your fault, Max. And it is not the Amanda we raised making these decisions. That girl loved her father more than anything in the world. I nodded, clinging to that thought. The Amanda I had raised would never have done this. Something had changed her, warped her values and perceptions. Jackson's influence had been insidious and complete. 4 hours after we had left the estate, my phone began to ring. I stared at Amanda's name on the screen, feeling a complex mixture of hope and anger. After the 5th call in succession, I finally answered. Amanda. Dad. Her voice was frantic, tearful. Where are you? I need you. Please tell me you are still nearby. Why? I asked, my tone carefully controlled. So security can turn me away again? What? No, she exclaimed. What are you talking about? I was at the estate earlier, I explained. Security had specific instructions not to allow me in. There was a photo of me with a note saying, "Do not let him in." Are you saying you did not know about this? There was a moment of stunned silence before Amanda spoke again, her voice shaking. Dad, I swear, I had no idea. That must have been Jackson or his father. I would never ever do that to you. I wanted to believe her, but months of manipulation and rejection had eroded my trust. Then why are you calling now? What has changed? She broke down in sobs. Everything has changed. The wedding is off. Jackson showed his true colors in front of everyone, and I finally saw him for who he really is. Dad, you were right about everything. Laura, who could hear Amanda's side of the conversation, raised her eyebrows in surprise. Tell me what happened, I said, my heart pounding. It all started when Megan, my maid of honor, asked where you were. Amanda explained through tears. When I said I thought you had decided not to come, she looked confused and told me she had seen you being turned away at the gate. I confronted Jackson immediately, and he admitted that he and his father had removed you from the guest list without telling me. And that ended the wedding? I asked, still trying to understand. No, that was just the beginning, she continued. When I got upset about you being turned away, Jackson told me to keep my voice down and not make a scene. He said the most horrible things about you, about our family. Then he grabbed my arm, hard enough to leave marks, and tried to physically move me to a private room. My blood boiled at the thought of him putting his hands on my daughter. Did he hurt you? Not badly, just bruises, she assured me quickly. But it was the look in his eyes, Dad. So cold and controlling. I suddenly saw what you had been trying to tell me all along. When I pulled away from him, he completely lost it. He started berating the catering staff over something trivial, screaming at them in front of everyone. What did you do? I asked, already feeling a surge of pride at what I suspected was coming. I told him the wedding was off, Amanda said, her voice stronger now. I said I would not marry someone who disrespected my father and treated service workers like they were beneath him. You should have seen his face, Dad. He could not believe I was standing up to him. And the Harrisons? I asked. Theodore tried to smooth things over, calling it wedding day nerves. Vivian suggested we take a short break and proceed with the ceremony. But by then, I had seen too much. I returned Jackson's ring and walked out. I am at a hotel now, alone. Relief and vindication washed over me, but they were secondary to my concern for Amanda's well-being. "Do you want us to come to you? Your mother is with me." "Yes, please," she said, sounding like my little girl again. "I need my parents right now." I looked at Laura, who was already gathering her purse. "Text us the hotel information. We will be there as soon as we can." As we drove to the hotel, Laura and I processed what had happened. "She finally saw through them," Laura said, shaking her head in wonder. "Sometimes people need to discover the truth for themselves," I replied, "no matter how much we try to protect them." When we arrived at the hotel, we found Amanda sitting in the lobby, still in her wedding dress, though she had removed the veil. Her makeup was streaked with tears, but when she saw us, she stood and ran into my arms like she used to do as a child. "I am so sorry, Dad," she sobbed against my shoulder. "I have been terrible to you. I let them change me, convince me that status and connections were more important than family and integrity. Can you ever forgive me?" I held her tight, my own tears flowing freely. "There is nothing to forgive, sweetheart. You are my daughter. Nothing will ever change that." Laura joined our embrace, and for a moment, it felt like our family was whole again. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. In the hotel suite Amanda had booked for her wedding night, she changed out of her wedding dress into comfortable clothes Laura had brought for her. As we sat together, Amanda began to reveal the full extent of what had transpired, both at the wedding and in the months leading up to it. "After I confronted Jackson about banning you from the wedding, things escalated quickly," Amanda explained, clutching a mug of tea. "He tried to minimize it at first, claiming it was a misunderstanding. But then Theodore stepped in and said they had made an executive decision for the good of everyone." "Executive decision?" I repeated, astounded by their audacity. Amanda nodded. "Those were his exact words, as if my wedding was some corporate merger. When I insisted they had no right to exclude my father, Jackson became condescending, telling me I was being emotional and irrational. Classic manipulation tactic," Laura murmured. "That was when my maid of honor, Megan, spoke up," Amanda continued. "She has never liked Jackson, but I always dismissed her concerns as jealousy. She reminded me of all the times Jackson had isolated me from friends and family, how he constantly criticized me in subtle ways, how I had changed since being with him. I had always appreciated Megan, a straight-talking girl who had been Amanda's friend since college. I made a mental note to thank her properly for her loyalty and courage." "What happened next?" I asked. "Jackson started getting agitated when he realized he was losing control of the situation. We were in one of the preparation rooms, and the ceremony was already delayed by 30 minutes. Guests were getting restless. That is when he made his biggest mistake. He snapped at one of the catering servers who knocked on the door to ask if everything was okay." Amanda's eyes darkened at the memory. The way he spoke to her, "Dad," it was inhuman, calling her stupid, threatening to have her fired, saying people like her were replaceable. In that moment, I saw what you had been trying to tell me about his character. This was not just wedding stress. This was who he truly was. "And that is when you ended it?" Laura asked. "Not quite yet," Amanda admitted. "I confronted him about his behavior, and he tried to smooth it over, saying the wedding had cost a fortune and everyone was waiting. But then Theodore chimed in with, 'Listen to your future husband, Amanda. He knows what is best.' Something just clicked in my brain. I realized I was about to marry into a family that would always dismiss my feelings and opinions. I listened with growing pride as Amanda continued. I told Jackson I needed 5 minutes alone to compose myself. He did not want to leave, but Megan insisted. As soon as they stepped out, I grabbed my phone and purse. Megan helped me find a back exit, and I just left. I called a rideshare from the service entrance and came straight to this hotel. "What about the guests?" Laura asked. Megan texted me that Jackson initially tried to tell everyone I was having a moment of nerves. But after an hour, Theodore had to announce the wedding was postponed. Apparently, there was quite a scene when Jackson realized I was not coming back. He threw the wedding cake at a wall. Despite the seriousness of the situation, I could not help but smile at the image, a temper tantrum at his age. Amanda nodded, then grew more somber. Dad, there is more you need to know. About why I became so distant, why I believed their lies about you. She reached for her purse and pulled out a small stack of papers. These are printouts of emails and texts I thought you sent me over the past year. I took the papers, scanning them with growing confusion and anger. There were messages supposedly from me, saying I was too busy to see her, that I found her new life pretentious, that I thought she had become shallow and materialistic. None of these messages had ever come from me. I never wrote any of this, I said, my voice tight with anger. I know that now, Amanda replied. Jackson had access to my phone and email passwords. He was intercepting your real messages and sending fake ones. He admitted it during our fight today, claiming he was protecting me from your negative influence. The depth of Jackson's manipulation was staggering. No wonder Amanda had grown so distant, if she believed I had been sending these hurtful messages. There is more, Amanda said quietly. Remember the letter you sent me by certified mail? The one that was returned unopened? I nodded. I never returned it. I never even saw it. Jackson intercepted it, wrote that note, and sent it back to you. I only found out about it today when he threw it in my face, saying you had tried to sabotage our relationship. My hands clenched into fists as I processed this information. He stole your mail? That is a federal offense. I know, Amanda sighed. But prosecuting him is not my priority right now. I just want to rebuild what I almost destroyed. Our relationship. She reached for my hand, her eyes filled with remorse. Dad, I am so ashamed. I let money and status blind me to what really matters. I became someone I do not even recognize, someone who would allow her father to be banned from her wedding. You did not know about that, I reminded her gently. But I allowed the situation to reach that point, she insisted. I chose Jackson and his world over my family. I believed the worst about you, based on fabricated messages, rather than trusting in our lifetime of love and connection. Laura, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Amanda, what matters now is what you do next. You recognized the truth before it was too late. You walked away from a toxic relationship that many people would have been too afraid or too invested to leave. Your mother is right, I added. It takes tremendous courage to leave at the altar, especially with all those expectations and all that money spent. You chose integrity over convenience. I could not be prouder. Amanda's tears flowed again, but they seemed different now, more cleansing than despairing. Thank you both for being here, even after everything. We will always be here, I assured her. That is what family means. As the evening progressed, Amanda shared more details about her relationship with Jackson. The subtle ways he had isolated her from friends who did not meet his social standards. How he had criticized her clothing, her speech patterns, her mannerisms, always under the guise of helping her fit into his world. The constant comparisons to other women in their social circle who were supposedly more polished, more sophisticated. I kept trying to become what he wanted, she admitted, changing myself bit by bit until I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. And still, it was never enough. It never would have been, Laura said wisely. Men like Jackson do not want an equal partner. They want someone they can control and mold to enhance their own image. As Amanda talked, I began to understand just how comprehensively Jackson had manipulated her. He had systematically cut her off from her support network, rewritten her understanding of her own past, and created a dependence on his approval. It was textbook emotional abuse, disguised as social advancement. What will you do now? I asked eventually. About your apartment? Your job? Amanda took a deep breath. I'm going to take some time off work. My boss is understanding, and I have plenty of vacation days saved. As for the apartment, Jackson's name is not on the lease, thankfully, but I do not want to go back there right away. too many memories. You can stay with me, I offered immediately, for as long as you need. Or with me, Laura added. Whatever makes you most comfortable. Amanda looked between us, gratitude shining in her eyes despite her exhaustion. Can I stay with you first, Dad? Just for a week or two. I think I need to reconnect with who I used to be before all of this. Of course, I said, my heart lightening. Your old room is exactly as you left it. Stuffed animals and all? She asked with a small smile. The first genuine one I had seen from her in over a year. Stuffed animals and all, I confirmed. Mr. Whiskers the bear is particularly eager to see you again. She laughed, the sound washing away some of the pain of the past months. Thank you, both of you, for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. As Amanda finally drifted off to sleep on the hotel room sofa, Laura and I sat watching over her, just as we had done when she was a child. She is going to be okay, Laura said softly. She is stronger than she knows. Yes, I agreed, looking at our daughter's face. Peaceful in sleep despite everything. She is. She is her mother's daughter, after all. Laura smiled at the compliment. And her father's. That quiet strength and unwavering integrity that comes from you, Max? In the stillness of that hotel room, with my daughter safely back in our lives, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The road ahead would not be easy for Amanda. There would be gossip to face, explanations to give, emotional wounds to heal, but she would not face any of it alone. The weeks following the wedding that never was proved challenging but transformative. Amanda came to stay at my house, sleeping in her childhood bedroom, and gradually reconnecting with the core of who she had been before Jackson entered her life. The first few days were particularly difficult. Amanda alternated between deep shame over how she had treated me and intense grief over the relationship she had lost, not just with Jackson himself, but with the future she had envisioned. I feel so foolish, she confessed one evening as we sat on the porch swing. I gave up everything real and valuable for an illusion. You are not the first person to be deceived by someone they loved, I replied gently. And you certainly will not be the last. But I hurt you so deeply, Dad. I cannot stop thinking about you standing there at the gate being turned away from my wedding. I took her hand. Amanda, listen to me. Yes, that moment was painful. Perhaps the most painful of my life. But do you know what matters more? That when you saw the truth, you chose to act on it. You chose integrity and love over convenience and status. That choice erases a multitude of mistakes. She leaned her head against my shoulder, just as she used to do as a child. I do not deserve your forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about deserving, I told her. It is about healing, moving forward, and rebuilding. And that is exactly what we are going to do. True to my word, I focused on helping Amanda heal, rather than dwelling on past hurts. We established a new routine together, cooking breakfast each morning, going for walks in the afternoon, and having honest conversations in the evenings. Slowly, I watched the daughter I had raised begin to re-emerge from behind the polished facade Jackson had created. 3 weeks after the wedding day, Amanda received a certified letter from Jackson's family attorney. I found her sitting at the kitchen table, the letter open before her, her face pale. What is it? I asked, immediately concerned. They want reimbursement for the wedding expenses, she said, her voice hollow. All of them. The venue, the catering, the flowers, everything. They are calling it damages, resulting from breach of marital intent. I took the letter and read through the legal jargon, my anger growing with each paragraph. This is bullying, pure and simple. They know they cannot legally enforce this. But what if they can? Amanda asked, worry creasing her brow. What if they take me to court? Then we will fight it, I said firmly, together. But first we are going to consult with our own attorney. My friend Richard had been practicing family law for 30 years. After reviewing the letter, he confirmed my suspicion. This is intimidation, not a legitimate legal claim. They are hoping to scare Amanda into paying. My advice? Send a brief response, stating that the relationship ended due to revelations of deceptive behavior and emotional abuse. and that any further communication should come through legal counsel. When we sent that response, the Harrisons backed down immediately. They had counted on Amanda being too ashamed or too frightened to stand her ground. They had underestimated both her resilience and her support system. That small victory seemed to mark a turning point in Amanda's recovery. She began to reach out to old friends she had neglected during her relationship with Jackson. She started looking into therapy options to help process the manipulation and emotional abuse she had experienced. She even called her boss to discuss returning to work. "I think I am ready," she told me over dinner one night. "Not to go back to my old apartment yet, but to start working again, to reclaim my career." "Are you sure?" I asked. "There is no rush." She nodded confidently. "I need to start rebuilding my life, Dad. And my work was always something I was good at, something that was truly mine. Jackson tried to take credit for my professional success, but the truth is, I earned every promotion and client on my own merit." "That is my girl," I said proudly. A month after she returned to work, Amanda found a new apartment, farther from the upscale neighborhood Jackson had insisted she live in, but closer to her office and more suited to her actual taste rather than the image he had wanted her to project. "Will you help me decorate it?" she asked me. I want it to be comfortable and authentic, not a showcase for impressing others. I spent a weekend helping her paint the walls a warm yellow, rather than the stark white Jackson had preferred. We hung colorful art she had collected during her college travels, pieces she had kept in storage because they did not fit his aesthetic. We arranged furniture for comfort rather than appearance, creating a space that truly reflected who she was. As we stood back to admire our work, Amanda smiled. "This feels like home. It feels like me." 6 months after the wedding that never happened, Amanda invited a small group of friends and family to a housewarming dinner at her new apartment. As I watched her move confidently among her guests, laughing and engaging in genuine conversations, I marveled at her transformation. The artificial polish was gone, replaced by an authentic warmth and self-assurance. Laura sidled up beside me. "She looks happy." "She does," I agreed. "Really happy, not the performative happiness she had with Jackson." "You know what I think helped the most?" Laura asked. "Having a father who showed her what true love looks like. Not conditional approval based on status or appearance, but unwavering support through the hardest times." I felt a lump form in my throat. I just did what any parent would do. "No," Laura contradicted gently. "Not every parent would have been so forgiving, so focused on healing rather than blame. You modeled the very love and integrity that ultimately helped her find her way back to herself." Later that evening, as the party wound down, Amanda pulled me aside to the small balcony of her apartment. "I have something for you," she said, handing me a small wrapped package. Inside was a framed photograph of the two of us from her childhood, standing proudly beside a fish we had caught during one of our camping trips. Both of us were sunburned and disheveled, with enormous grins on our faces. "I found this while unpacking," she explained. "It reminded me of who I really am, who we are together." I traced the image with my finger, remembering that perfect day by the lake. "This was always the real you, Amanda, not the person Jackson tried to shape you into." "I know that now," she said softly, "and I promise I will never forget it again." A year after the wedding debacle, Amanda introduced me to David, a kind environmental engineer she had been dating for a few months. Unlike Jackson, David asked me questions about my construction work with genuine interest. He treated service staff with respect and courtesy. Most importantly, he looked at Amanda with admiration for exactly who she was, not who he wanted her to be. Over dinner at my house, I watched them interact with a sense of profound relief. Their relationship was based on mutual respect and authentic connection, not social climbing or appearance. Later, as we washed dishes together, Amanda nudged me playfully. "So what do you think of him?" "I think he seems like a good man," I replied honestly. "But what matters most is how he treats you, and whether you feel free to be yourself with him." She nodded thoughtfully. "I do. After Jackson, I promised myself I would never again shrink myself to please someone else." David appreciates me for who I am, even the parts that are not perfect or polished. That is what real love looks like, I told her. I learned that from you, Dad, she said, hugging me impulsively. You loved me enough to let me make my own mistakes, and then loved me enough to help me recover from them. As I reflect on our journey now, I realize that the wedding that never happened was actually a profound gift. It brought my daughter back to herself, and it brought us back to each other. It taught us both about the true meaning of love and the importance of authenticity. Had Amanda married Jackson that day, she would have disappeared further into his controlling world, gradually losing all connection to her true self and her family. Instead, she found the courage to walk away and reclaim her life on her own terms. Sometimes, the most painful moments in our lives become the catalysts for our greatest growth and healing. The photo at the gate with "Do not let him in" was a brutal rejection, but it ultimately led to Amanda recognizing who truly deserved to be let into her life and her heart. If you are watching this and struggling with a relationship that requires you to become someone else, someone smaller or less authentic, I hope our story gives you courage. Real love, whether from family or a partner, should expand you, not diminish you. It should celebrate your true self, not demand that you become someone else. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between maintaining appearances and standing in your truth? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if our story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening, and remember, it is never too late to reclaim your authentic self and rebuild the relationships that truly matter.